Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the Daily Race C track guide in the wet at Spa. So this is in the Group 3 cars, the GT3 cars. I chose to use the Audi R8 for this track guide because the Audi R8 is pretty much the overpowered car for this track. I think it's going to be the best car to get as high up on that grid in qualifying as possible. It's MR, obviously in these wet conditions the MR cars are preferable because they have the engine further towards the rear, so that's going to give you more traction coming out of these corners, and in general they're just a bit faster over the lap. So that is the car to use. Obviously even in the dry conditions this Audi R8 is pretty much the car to use. So it really does suit the track. The gearing works out for the track and you're going to get the best time possible. So for this lap we're going to give you a guide based on time trial. Now I am going to try and point out some tips for the race conditions as well, because we have ran this car in the race. Rear tyre wear is important for this race. Even though we only have times 7 tyre wear, it is important that you look after the rears for the Audi R8 and the MR cars in general. I did try out a number of cars last night to test out. The Audi R8 seemed to be the best car overall, I think, for the race conditions. Even versus the Porsche, I think the Audi can still put in better lap times versus the Porsche, and the fuel consumption is a little bit more of an issue with the Audi compared to the Porsche, but it's not that much of an issue that you need to worry too much. You just need to use the mixtures 2 and 3 maybe through some of the corners, which is also going to help out with your rear tyre life anyway. So coming out of some of the slow corners, just use that mixture 2 just to dull the power a bit, stop the wheel spin on the rears. That will then save your tyres for the end of the race. Now obviously in the race conditions also you're going to be using a different brake bias to what I use in this track guide. For this track guide we use -3. That is because when you're going for that ultimate lap I didn't really want all the bias towards the front, which is going to cause the fronts more of a likelihood of locking up, even though we have ABS on the default setting. In the race conditions though we go all the way to the front, -5. That is going to keep the rears in as good condition as possible to the end of the race, and also the downshifting we'll talk about during this lap I'm going to show you is going to be different in the race conditions, because during the qualifying lap that I'm about to show you, very aggressive downshifting to help slow the car down in the wet. For some reason in the wet conditions it works on Gran Turismo, however in the race you're going to have to be very cautious on your downshifting and brake a fraction earlier into some of these braking zones to help preserve them rear tyres. So let's start this lap. Widening the line for the start of your lap is very important there. You're going to get easier traction, better traction and faster speed. It might not gain you a massive amount, but every little tenth helps on your lap. So going into turn 1 you're going to brake before the 100 board and left, so we're going to slow it down now. 100 board is there and you're on the brakes. You can see quite early on that brakes to make sure that you're going to get the car into the apex. Now there's a number of lines you can take into this corner. You can see Favaris in front of us there, the Ghost we're chasing, takes a wide line. I take quite an aggressive entry, and you can see I'm getting very close up. Well, I think I got a little bit too close. I would have rather have come from a more squared angle than this, a bit more like Favaris. You're going to see the advantage of that, because now Favaris' Ghost is going to pull away. And one thing to bear in mind for this lap is we're using the Ghost there as a reference to the lines you will be taking. I like to do this for my track guys. Now Favaris is using no ABS, which is insane. I don't know if it's a glitch or what, but he's got no ABS on as we go into this really fast flowing section. Now this is important to come off the throttle now. Lift off the throttle, attack the apex, and then again back onto the throttle to chuck the car in. This is going to help rotate the weight on the car through here to give you the grip all the way up the hill. And then at the top of Redalion you're going to see flat out now, no lifting at this point. You can actually straight line the top of the hill. You'll see this in real life, a lot of racing drivers do it over the curb, straight lining it, and then flat out now all the way into the heavy braking zone. And now this point it's really important to be very aggressive on the downshifting. You're going to see me do it. In the race you will not be doing this. It's very important that you don't do this in the race, because you'll kill your rear tyres. So going into the braking zone, just after the 150 board, braking inputs are going in, and watch how aggressively we're going to downshift this car. 4th, 3rd, 2nd, right now 2nd gear, just before the 50 board into 2nd gear. And we're going to try and get the right hand tyre to hit the curb. Now Favaris runs a little bit wide, possibly due to his braking bias, braking not on default, and we're going to take a nice early apex there. Be very smooth through this section. It is key to be smooth. Try not to be aggressive on your throttle, you'll get the car spinning. And again on the left hand side, keep your left hand tyres very close to that curb, and you're going to try and keep to the left now, but try to avoid the curb on the right hand side. You don't really want to get on there, because as you put the power down you run the risk of spinning out. You see there Favaris also avoiding the curb on the left hand side. Now through here, 2nd gear, you're going to see onto the power. gentle onto the power here. It's very important not to be too aggressive. Now, one thing I probably should have done was put it in third gear. In some laps I did after this, I put it in third and gained quite a lot over my Ghost. So that is one thing. You might want to be a bit earlier into third gear or keep the transition to power a bit better. Now braking just before the curb on the left hand side there, you see, nice and early. Again, important to make sure you don't brake late into some of these corners. I brake the fraction late. You'll see the difference in lines between myself and the Ghost in front, but we managed to square the car off. You can see I feel confident to start putting the power in nice and early. Once you feel confident, get that power in, but don't just go 100% throttle. You need to be gradual with these throttle inputs in these wet conditions. You see, still not on 100% throttle. Then when I feel the grips there, we've gone to that 100% throttle. And now we need to widen this line into this left-hand corner. You see a bit of braking inputs going in now, down into second gear. And we're going to be very cautious before we put the power down. You can see again 15%, 20%, 30%, 50% power, and then up into third gear nice and early, just to avoid spinning out on that curb on the right hand side. Now into this really fast flowing left hand corner. Important again to brake just before these 50 boards that you see in front of me now. Braking inputs there, down into third gear. And you're going to try and hold the apex for the first part. You'll see very close to the apex here. Now, I like to keep that tight line for this first part of the apex. And then the car is going to run out wide. As you go through the corners, you're putting that power back in. Again, you can see that throttle isn't 100%. You've got to be very delicate on the throttle, or the car will start drifting through here. Up into fourth gear early, again, to dull that power a bit. And then start putting that throttle in all the way through the exit. And try and get as much exit speed as possible as we now go into the next braking zone. And we're going to be on the brakes just past 100 board there. You can see the braking inputs going in now, quite a way before the 50 board on the left hand side. Then downshifting again into second gear. You can see I take quite an aggressive line into this corner compared to the Ghost in front, who takes a wider line. I like to keep it a little bit narrower through here, and now it's important to keep track of your throttle inputs through this section. I've highlighted it there. So 30% throttle inputs about there. Then we're going to up it a bit to 100% before coming back off the throttle, because we've got to be very delicate through this corner. You don't want to run wide. You can see the throttle inputs very gradual. Once I feel confident, we're on the 100% throttle. And then now braking very early. You'll see braking already. You can see Favaris there in front of us. The Ghost in front is actually about the curb. The front of his car is on the curb, and we brake very early, way before that curb. Down into second gear again, completely off the throttle, off the brakes, and then gradually putting that throttle in as we go through the corner to try and maximize our exit speed from that corner. Again, this right hand corner is a very tricky corner. You see I turned in very early to this corner. Throttle inputs coming off there to try and get the rotation to the front end, to get the weight onto the front, so we've got the grip on the front rear. But I took quite a narrow line, which is going to give me a little bit of loose rear going through there. You saw the rear going very loose, but managed to keep the power down, maximum throttle all the way now down through another very tricky and very important corner that we're going to approach now. You need to make sure you get this right, or this can break your lap instantly. So going into this left hand corner, you see we widen the line onto the green bit of Astro. Again, another thing that I don't too like about GT Sport in the wet. Now a bit of braking input and accelerating going in at the same time. And we're going to try and get our left-hand tyres as close to this apex as possible. This is so important. As we back on the throttle there, you can see playing with the throttle all the way through the corner, and make sure that your two left-hand tyres do not run completely off the track, or you'll get dirty tyres going into this braking zone, which will affect your braking. We braked just before the 150 board. I braked a little bit later. I would have preferred to brake maybe a fraction earlier. You'll see the difference now, how Favaris is able to get his car lined up for this final corner much better than me, because I've gone way too deep into the corner. But I do manage to stop the car, get it rotated, square it off, and then somehow managed to just square the car for this final corner. But probably lost about 2 tenths on this final chicane. There was another 2 tenths available just from that one corner as we now accelerate over the line for a 2 minutes 33.6, I think that is. So I think we could probably squeeze a 32.9 out of this if we was really to push this 100% over a day or something. This was done within, I think, about 35-40 minutes of time trial. It did take a little bit longer than what I would have liked, but once I got this lap in, I think we improved from a 34.2 to a 33.6. I thought that would do. Did a couple of laps after just to try and see where I could gain some time, and I could see the potential was 100% there for a 32. So let's have a little look at this lap from the chase camera now, and you're going to see what I mean about really widening these lines into these corners and using that throttle to help you through, and maximum speed all the way through there. It's really important to carry the speed through a Rouge and Redalian. That's going to really help you out in terms of your maximum speed going into this braking zone, and you'll really see in full speed just how aggressive we are on the downshifting compared to what you will be in the race. So you'll see much more aggressive than what you will do in the race conditions. You're going to be braking fractionally earlier, and you're going to be downshift a lot slower. Like Gran Turismo, for example, you really need to look after your rear tyres in these conditions, because in Gran Turismo it emphasizes with the tyre wear that we run with the ×7 tyre wear, ×10, etc. If you're aggressive on your downshifting, you're going to kill your rear tyres, especially in MR cars. That is one area you can use to really look after your rear tyres. So be gentle on them downshifts. Each shift, just let each shift last longer. Braking earlier, but then shifting later into the corner will really help your rear tyres on this game. For example, on your front tyres, when you're looking after your fronts, you use your braking to do that. So braking like 70-60% and braking earlier again and letting like the car roll into the corners will help with your tyre life on the fronts. But for the rears, you need to really bear in mind your shifting. That is so important, that we need for this race as well. It's quite important because I've seen a lot of people struggling towards the end of the races that we did last night with their rear tyre life. But yeah, that is one thing you need to bear in mind with these MR cars, as you see, really using the full width of the track, accelerating out of these corners, being very close to that. You'll see how the rear goes a little bit there because of the line I took, but we managed to hold it. It didn't look quite so bad from this view, but it felt a lot worse when you're on board, obviously in wet conditions. And then through this corner, you're going to see how important it is to use that little bit of green Astro on the right hand side. Again, this is something that I really wish sim racing games would get right. The curbs and off tracks should be way more slippery than what they are. I think that you can use them too much in general on most sim games that I've come across in wet conditions. As we see that line where I missed the apex slightly, I would have rather got that right hand tyre over the curb and then squared it off much better, but we managed to rescue that slightly. I think we lost a tenth to 2 tenths on that final corner, and we go over that line for a solid lap. Anyway, I hope this track guide has helped you out. Please let me know in the comment section if it has helped you out. Let me know if you've improved your time, if you've got a win through some of the advice I've gave you. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed, and click that notification and hit that like button. I do appreciate every one of you that hits that like button, so thanks again everyone, and we'll be back very soon.